Hi, welcome to Dev Central. This is Jason, and I have with me John Wagnon, and we are going to recap a little bit of our breakout session that we had for customers today. And we did a deep dive on iRules, optimization, and best practices. So, John, why don't you first off tell me a little bit about your agility experience so far?
Yeah, so this is my first agility. It's been a great time, just learning a lot about iRules, a lot about F5 technologies. I had some great keynote sessions from CEO all the way down, and it was a pleasure to get to kind of hear that leadership and that strategic direction from those guys, as well as really dig into the technology and iRules specifically, which was nice in these breakout sessions and the day-long class that we had as well.
Yeah, so on Tuesday we had a day-long iRules class where we just kind of went from very beginning, what is TCL, why TCL with iRules, and all the way up to advanced topics in iRules, and then today we had a breakout session on just kind of a deep dive into optimization. So we walked through some of the optimization steps of using variables, but using them carefully. You don't want to use too many variables, especially just having a variable for every single thing you set. Doesn't always make sense to do that. However, if you're going to be in for loops, iterating through, don't always want to have a lot of variables in that. And then we talked about not using regex. Regex is very bad. You don't want to do that when you use iRules because when you have a couple 100,000 connections per second coming through the box, regex can get really, really expensive.
Yeah.
We also talked about, the number one thing that we always tell people, and they laugh at this because we talk iRules.
Yeah.
But the number one optimization technique is don't use one.
That's right.
And of course, the product is highly optimized with the features that are just checkboxes.
Yeah.
And so if you can use that, use that. iRules are great when you need it, but if you don't need it, don't use it.
That's right.
So there's some of the optimization techniques, and then we also talked about best practices.
Yep.
And so you went through an iRule exercise a couple months ago,
right,
and you wrote about it.
Right.
But why don't you just give like a brief summary of your experience of going through the process? Maybe not the iRule itself, but just
Sure.
kind of your experience going from, hey, Joe's throwing something over the wall at you,
yeah,
and now you have a problem to solve. So just
right.
kind of talk about the experience of solving the problem.
Yeah, so Joe Pruitt, another guy on the Dev Central team, had an issue that he needed help with, and we used an iRule to solve his problem. And so we started off just kind of logically thinking through the problem, establishing what exactly do we need to do here. We got on a whiteboard and sort of walked through the steps that we would need to take to solve the problem. Kind of created some pseudocode again to just understand what was going on, and then ultimately turned that into the iRule syntax and tested that to make sure it worked okay. And it did not work okay at first, and we had to kind of tweak things a little bit, but ended up optimizing that and making it efficient to where it worked correctly. So it was a great experience, and that was one thing that I kind of I noticed in the class today, just sort of a pattern of how we need to be efficient with our iRules. And if like you just said, if you don't have to use one, don't, because a lot of those things have been productized, which is a good plug for feedback. If users are out there and say, hey, I really could use this. I've got an iRule for X, Y, or Z. They could send in that feedback, and who knows, it may make it into a product, version down the road, and then you don't have to use the iRule anymore. So it's a good process.
Cool. So I'm going to call you to the mat on one thing. So you wrote the iRule and it works great, but you violated step 5 of commenting your code. Because I noticed in the iRule that I moved to production, there are no comments in it. Yeah. And so we're going to have to take care of that.
I also violated Rule 1, and I wrote an iRule. So anyway, but that's a good point. And that's speaking of that, there was one guy in one of our sessions that talked about, in terms of comments, if you pseudocode to kind of talk about the idea behind the code. As you pseudocode, if you then put in the syntax of the actual code after that, you can turn your pseudocode into your comments. So I thought that was a great.
Yeah,
point.
That was a really great point. That was in the first session.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a really great point. I may actually start doing that. So
sure.
Instead of just writing out formal comments, start with the pseudocode. Then as I got the real code, comment out the pseudocode, and you're good to go.
There it is. Yeah.
So guy in the left in the first session.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Great job. Keep it coming. Yeah.
So, well, that kind of wrapped. Oh, I did want to mention one more thing. David Holmes, who blogs on Dev Central Central a lot. We went to his asymmetric attack talk today.
Phenomenal.
If you have not read some of his blogs, you need to go read them now, because he's not only is he phenomenal at writing and breaking down the attack vectors, but he's a really engaging speaker. So if you ever get a chance to come to an agility, or David Holmes is going to be speaking at a user group in your area, definitely make sure you're there. So, well, that's a wrap from Agility 2013 here in San Francisco. Thanks for coming, those of you who are here, and for those of you who are not, glad you could join us here online.